Morning, I hope you're all well and bearing up in current lockdowns. So today's video, not a snazzy video. I want to talk about travelling in Spain during COVID and also the difference between how the media are portraying lockdowns and the rules and the actuality of travelling in Spain. And also look at the difference of the information that's available online for Spain. And I know there's a lot of people that are in different parts of Europe who are still travelling down towards Spain or intending to travel down towards Spain. So I wanted to have a record as we go of how it affects us, and also look at some of the websites that you can use and the information that you can get, and also look at the contradictions between what's in the national press or the media, what's on government websites, and then the actuality of what is really happening on the ground, so to speak. So before we have a look at some of the websites, most of Europe is in one form of lockdown or another, and they are varying, and the rules are different in different parts of the EU. But for us, we've obviously travelled through France, and the second day of our travel through France was during lockdown, and we had no problems at all. And we saw gendarmes, but nobody stopped us. We just went straight through France, and then we arrived to the border of Catalonia at 5 p.m. and allegedly the border was closing at 6 p.m. on that day. However, we've met at least a dozen people on the road who've come in to Spain through Catalonia after that border closure, and they too have had no problems. So generally speaking, the information online seems to differ to what's actually happening on the ground. And also for those of you that are coming in from different countries, the lockdown in Spain, as I've mentioned before in previous vlogs, is slightly different to other countries in that it's localised, so each municipality has a different version of lockdown. So for example, in Catalonia, there is a curfew at 10 p.m, so you're not allowed to travel about or be outside, even sitting outside your van or motorhome after 10 p.m. Whereas in Valencia, where I am today, the curfew is at 11 p.m. And in some areas of Spain, the lockdowns are more severe. So Andalusia, so far from a media perspective, seems to be more severe. But as we haven't reached Andalusia yet, I can't report back on the actualities. So at the moment in Valencia, it's not really a lockdown per se. The main measures are obviously masks in all public places, walking about on the beach, going shopping and so on. You must wear a mask and it's mandatory. The curfew is 11 p.m, so there's no sitting outside, no driving or walking about after 11 p.m. unless you're a resident and you have actual paperwork with a reason to be travelling. Maybe you're a builder and you need to get to work or whatever. So that doesn't apply to us. So there's no driving, no socialising after 11 p.m. in Valencia. But if you read what's online on all the Spanish websites, all the information only seems to pertain to local residents, doesn't actually mention tourists. However, there is an exception to that on the government's national tourism website. So let's have a look at those websites now and make some comparisons. It is all a bit confusing when you read information, particularly if you're looking at Facebook and you've got the keyboard warriors saying you shouldn't travel or you shouldn't be moving around versus what's on government websites. There's a lot of information, and a lot of the time it is all very contradictory. So let's actually look at what information is online and how that compares to the actuality of travelling around in Spain at the moment. So if you go on your phone or your laptop and type in Open Europe, making sure to spell Europe correctly, and find the website Reopen Europa, and what you find there is you've got a map of Europe, and as you can see the majority of the map is red with a few exceptions, Switzerland here, and most of it is red, and then it tells you all about the different rules and severity of COVID numbers in the EU. So for example, the reds and the darker reds here pertain to the number of COVID infections in those areas, and then you can select a country depending where you're travelling. So in our case, obviously Spain, and then hit go, and then it gives you the different regions in Spain, and this pertains primarily to the amount of positive tests for corona and the numbers, and the daily deaths on the dates down here. And then you can zoom into different areas. So if we change it to Andalusia, it then gives you 50 or more per 100,000 people have tested positive. So this gives you the information on the severity of coronavirus numbers in the EU, but specifically at the moment for Spain. So on the Spain.info website, on the home page on the laptop, which is automatically top line on your mobile phone, if you click COVID-19 updates, and this was updated on the 6th of November, there we have it. Spain is now a safe destination thanks to its strict measures to control worldwide healthcare crisis. You can travel to Spain if you're travelling from the European Union, from a country in the Schengen area, or from another country which is a reciprocal agreement. And then it says certain countries have established restrictions or quarantine periods. And if you click the United Kingdom as an example, it then takes you to the nidirect.gov.uk, which says you can carefully consider your holiday and travel options. So that's worth reading. But a lot of these apply if you're flying into the country, and there's no specific information for people travelling in a vehicle. So is there a health check? Yes, all travellers arriving in Spain by air or sea will go through a health check, but there was no health checks for travellers such as ourselves entering the border via vehicle. And then it says, can I travel around inside Spain? Yes, within Spain there is free movement with occasional exceptions in specific places to ensure safety. Remember, this was updated today on the 6th of November. So yes, within Spain there is free movement with occasional exceptions. Appear that the Spanish government website is applying information to residents' movements, and the tourism website is applying information to tourist movements. So far all good. We should carry on travelling further south and see how we get on. So to give you some reassurance, we've met a large number of people both in person and also online via comments to our vlogs, messages and so on Facebook. And it would appear that a large number of people like us having no particular issues with moving around in Spain, and if they do come across roadblocks or guardia, people with foreign plates appear to be always, or generally speaking, waved through. And that would kind of reiterate what it says on the Spanish tourism website. It would appear, whilst it's not particularly clear, that at the moment there is a high tolerance to tourism and travellers and nomads like us, and that there isn't actually a strict lockdown in place, so we don't actually have to stay put. Whereas if you're a Spanish resident, it would appear it is more severe. So I would personally say, if you're considering travelling, that it's relatively okay to do so at the moment, and your freedom of movement as a foreign plated vehicle is not being restrictive as a generalisation from our experience of people that we met. But I would recommend that you check the websites I've mentioned previously. Also, if you're on Facebook, a good place to go to is the N332 page, which is well known for giving unbiased and accurate information of travel restrictions in various different parts of Spain. So what I'd like to say is, firstly, to thank you for all your comments that you've put on our previous vlogs, and for your support and your subscriptions and likes. But I'd also ask, if you've got personal experience of travelling out of France into Spain and or through Spain, that you put your own personal experiences, whether they be good or bad, so that we can kind of keep up to date on whether there are changes and whether the restrictions are becoming harsher, or whether it's still relatively easy to travel between municipalities in Spain. So we're going to be heading off in about an hour and driving further south, but we'll still be within Valencia, so I can't foresee any problems at all there. But in a few days we might move over a municipality border, so we'll update you there. But we just met another guy, Terry, who was parked next to us on our campsite, and he travelled from the UK on Wednesday, drove through France and then into Catalonia yesterday afternoon, and he had no problems at all. Again, no restrictions for him, straight through, no checks at the border, no paperwork. So that's encouraging for us nomads if you are travelling and obviously caught in the lockdown scenarios. So we'll update you as we go. Thanks very much. Morning. So we're at the campsite in Calera and we're just leaving after a couple of days here to avoid the storm. Weather's still not brilliant. The storm seems to have passed, so we're going to carry on heading south. So here follows a broadcast from the local government, and the changes are, which I'm reading out, so excuse me while I look down. Restaurants and bars will only be able to operate at a third of total capacity indoors and 50% outside on their terraces. Self-service restaurants and buffet service is banned. Shops and supermarkets can only operate at a 50% capacity, which is the same for cinemas and theatres, but they remain open. Group activities are limited to 6 people. Work meetings should be held online wherever possible. And these additional measures come into effect throughout the Valencian community region at midnight tonight, which is Friday the 6th of November, and continue until midnight on December the 9th. And 2 specific towns and municipalities have been sealed off for entry and exit. Those are Elda and Petra, and that's for residents. They can only enter or leave for 2 weeks for any of the justified reasons in the government's guidelines. So effectively it means it's relatively unchanged for those living in a van or travelling in a motorhome. We can still travel about. We've just arrived at one of our favourite beaches near Benidorm, but far enough away from Benidorm. It's very quiet and absolutely lovely. We've driven away from the storm and we're now in 27 degrees. It's been sunny all afternoon, so absolutely lovely. So stay tuned for further updates. Cheers, bye.